I'm so glad to be here tonight to talk about caring for ourselves and our parents. And why do I get to speak about this? Well, first of all, I work for San Diego Hospice and the Institute of Palliative Medicine, the drug producers of all the bags you heard, but they're all good. And so I get to work with a lot of patients and families that are facing this. Secondly, I'm a mom. I have a family. I have a 21-year-old daughter. So the other thing is my dad died just last year. I have an 80-year-old mom and a pretty busy job. So trying to take care of your parents in your life is pretty familiar to me. Many of you could probably give this talk. How many are caring for your parent right now? And I've talked to a lot of women as I'm coming in with this same thing. If we took a whole day and went around the room, each one of you would have an incredible story about caring for your parent, but they'd be really different. They'd just vary based on your families and everything else. But there'd be some really similar things running through them. One, most families are a little crazy and dysfunctional. Two, each one of us as really strong individuals would step in or do step in and want to take care of everything because nobody else is going to do it, and secondly, nobody else is going to do it as well as we do. Third, we stop taking care of ourselves. And then we eventually become exhausted and almost reach breakdown. I can't even tell you, in the throes of the situation with my dad, it was crazy. My sister and I were up there almost every night, getting him out in the wheelchair, you know, working with my mom. My daughter was transferring from Arizona State to San Diego State. Work was insane. And I can't tell you how many times I'd be driving on the freeway and I'd be driving going, I just can't do this. I know I can't do this. What would happen if I just pulled my car over on the freeway, opened the door up and just laid down on the ground? Would there be some like really incredible emergency vehicle that would come by and just sweep me up, take me to some just blessed sanatorium, medicate me for like 6 months, and then drop me back off after all the chaos was done? I bet some of you have thought of that. Could you imagine if there was such a service, what the freeways would look like on Monday morning? There'd just be like people all over the place going, take me now. But there's not such a thing. There's not such an emergency service because this is life. And many of us are going to be dealing with this situation. The joy, the heartbreaks, the failures, and the really wonderful successes. There are 2 times in my life that I felt completely hopeless. Hopeless is the wrong word, helpless. The first was when I brought my daughter home from the hospital, my daughter Taylor, and I had her on this really cool changing table, you know, that I'd created with these little teeny tiny diapers, and I'm sitting there looking at her because I had to take the parent classes, and I didn't know how to put the diaper on, which was front and which was back. And I remember just going, oh my God, how am I ever going to get through this? The second was when we brought my dad home from the hospital. And there he is in his big hospital bed next to this ginormous stack of diapers. And again, I couldn't figure out, how do you put one of these on your own dad? Which is the front and which is the back of the diaper, not my dad. How are we going to approach this taking care of my dad? Considering all the emotions involved, I decided the best approach to this task was with a business perspective. It's surprising how well this works for so many things. Most of you have probably had this epiphany about a situation in your personal life. If only this was happening at work, I would know exactly how to tackle it. So that's what I decided to do. That's what my sister and I decided to do. I knew how to effectively manage an organization. I knew how to apply basic management principles, so that's what I did. I'm convinced that approaching the challenges for caring for our parents and ourselves from a business management perspective will help you too. By applying the lessons you've learned during your career, you can do this. You can take care of your parents and yourself. It'll be hard sometimes, surprisingly rewarding at others, and sometimes you can find the best humor in the worst situations. I can see 4 basic principles that really helped guide us through this often scary territory of taking care of my dad. Looking ahead, identifying what needs to be done, figuring out who's on the team, and envisioning the whole picture. L-I-F-E, life. Easy enough. The first action, looking ahead, is something you can do right now. At our jobs, when we're faced with an especially challenging project, it's essential to look ahead. Planning is critical. In my job at San Diego Hospice, I've seen how lack of planning, failure to look ahead, can create an immense amount of stress that could have otherwise been avoided. And I've seen families fall apart just at the moment they should have been coming together, simply because there wasn't a lot of planning in place. By planning and figuring out what you need to do, it's amazing how one simple conversation with your parent can lead into some really remarkable results. A friend of mine, his older mom had gotten to the point, she'd actually lived by herself for a while, hit the point where she couldn't hear him on the phone anymore, and he was really having some challenges with her. So he decided to buy one of those phones with the giant buttons on it and the hearing booster, and he was taking a real chance because he was going to go over and install it. And he didn't know if she was going to freak out or be appreciative. Well, after he installed it, she was tremendously appreciative, and they really talked about how helpful it was going to be. Installing that phone led her to say, yeah, okay, I'll get one of those panic alert buttons in my house. When they went through that process, it led them to have the conversation about, is your will updated? What kind of things are you looking for in healthcare? Again, it's amazing how that little act could lead into more serious discussions, which illustrates a mantra that I live by with my parents, and it's, you just never know. You never know how they're going to react. Another component of looking ahead is doing your homework. Do this for everything, and I know most of you do. Browse websites dedicated to caring for your parents. It's amazing what's out there. The resources are incredible. Now I'm just going to cite two because we actually did some homework on this. One is the SANDAG website for transportation. It's amazing and most people don't know it, so if you're having any problems with that, you should check that out. And the other is the Elder Care Directory. They probably have copies over there, I'm not sure, but this is a really cool piece of information that just has so many resources in it, so you should get a copy of that and use it. The next step is to identify what needs to be done, the second of the LIFE principles, and it's based on my experience at work. Breaking down that big project into its various elements creates a roadmap for you to follow, whether it's in the context of your job or taking care of your older parent. My sister and I really got into this. We even created a mission statement and a business plan. Now, I'm not suggesting that you do anything quite that obsessive, but it is helpful to identify what needs to be done, both globally and specifically. By globally, I mean your overall objectives, the goals you want to meet when you're taking care of your aging parent. Write them down. This is really a good exercise, and it's really helpful. Your global goals might be to make sure your parent is safe, has their medical needs met, and can enjoy life to the fullest despite any physical or mental limitations. Writing down your global goals not only focuses your attention, but it can also fit what seems to be an overwhelming job into a much more manageable process. The second element to identifying what needs to be done involves a second list, the specific action items to get to your global goals. For example, identifying shopping, cleaning, cooking that needs to be done to achieve the global goal of making sure your parent is safe and comfortable. What about the laundry? How many times is your parent going to have to go to the doctor? If global goals tell you where you want to be, the list of specific activities will tell you how to get there. After you've cataloged the specific activities that need to be done, be flexible. Prioritize what matters most. And at all possible costs, avoid the temptation, and I know we've all done this, to sweep in and take over. You have to remember, your folks have been taking care of themselves and you for a really long time. So make sure there's areas in their lives where they still have some control, where they still get to make decisions. It's really, really important. Let me give you an example of control. This control thing is really actually interesting. It's a whole subject unto itself. You know, control with your kids, at work, with your husband, with your partner. It's amazing if you identify control issues and you know when to give a little bit and to take a little bit. How many times that can mediate a really difficult situation. So here's my example. My sister and I used to go up every night for months when my dad was sick, and we'd go up to his house, and he had had a stroke, so his right side wasn't working. So we'd get him into the wheelchair, and then we'd take him on this walk all through his neighborhood. And it was really great because I loved being with my sister and I had fun being with my dad. We showed up one night to pick him up, and my mom had him dressed beautifully. She had him in this gorgeous polo shirt and this pair of linen shorts that were just pressed to perfection. So we get him in the wheelchair and we start going on the normal walk we go on. My dad slides right out of the wheelchair onto the ground. So my sister and I are like picking him up and we're kind of freaking out, but we get him back in the wheelchair and we start going down this little hill again. He slides right back out. Okay, so I have to really be honest, my sister laughed at everything. We laugh at everything, so we're kind of laughing, but we're kind of serious, but we kind of get him back in the wheelchair. We have to like pop a wheelie. This is how bad it is to get him back to the house. We go into the house and we're all exhausted. We looked at my mom and we went, Mom, those shorts don't work. They make my dad slide out of the wheelchair. Now, I'm not making this up. The next night we went to get my dad, he had the shorts on. It was at that moment my sister and I looked at each other and we had a choice. We could either make a really big deal out of it and say, Mom, how did you put these shorts back on Dad? Or, and we were both thinking this, we had to realize one of the things my mom could control in what was a really difficult situation, seeing her really beloved husband failing, was what he looked like when he went out of the house. That was really important to her. That was normalizing it. So instead of getting all upset, we quickly figured out how to put a mat underneath him that would keep him from sliding. And he probably wore those damn shorts like every other time for the next 9 years, I'm telling you, 9 months. Okay, so once you've looked ahead and identified what needs to be done, all you have to do is go and do it, right? But take it from me, and I think you've heard a lot of women say this tonight, you cannot do it alone.